Coming up, a diverse group of emerging leaders aim to transform the world by fire. Plus, we bring you the sights and sounds from the 50th anniversary of the Wounded Knee occupation by the American Indian movement. And we are looking at Native bills across various state legislatures. I'm Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews, plus headlines from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
Amarawa Hopa, thank you for joining us. We start our newscast nationally with the news about a problematic and long-running television ad being retired by the National Congress of American Indians. This anti-pollution commercial, running since 1971, shows a man in Native-style clothing shedding a single tear at the sight of smokestacks and litter. The commercial immediately made Italian-American actor Cody Ironeyes a household name across the country. But to many Native Americans, the public service announcement is a reminder of the constant stereotypes they face. It's been referenced over the decades in popular TV shows and all over the internet. NCAI has the rights to this long-parodied public service announcement and says it is now retiring it. Executive Director Larry Wright Jr. says his organization is looking forward to putting this advertisement to bed for good. Moving to Nevada, advocates are continuing their efforts to block a major lithium mining project, but this time by using urgent measures. Last week, 4 environmental groups sought an emergency court order to temporarily halt further construction at the sacred site Thacker Pass. In a prior ruling, U.S. Judge Miranda Dew approved the mine to be constructed, and she also directed the Bureau of Land Management to revisit part of its environmental review of the project. Now, activists say work should be stopped until an appeal can be heard in the 9th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals. Dew denied that request, saying it would be unlikely for their challenges against the Bureau of Land Management to be successful. Her ruling marks the third time injunctions have been refused to the conservationists and tribal citizens. The open pit mine, if completed, will be deeper than the length of a football field. Lithium America, the company building it, says the start of construction was, quote, imminent. Now to South Dakota, where a key ally of Native communities has died. James Abrask made history as the first Arab American to be elected a U.S. Senator in the 1970s. While he wasn't Native himself, the Democrat grew up on Rosebud homelands in South Dakota. That experience laid the groundwork for his advocacy of Indigenous people. As a member of Congress, Abrask became the first chair of the Senate Indian Affairs Committee. Part of his work resulted in the passing of key pieces of legislation like the Indian Child Welfare Act and the American Indian Religious Freedom Act. Abrask died last week at his home in Sioux Falls, surrounded by his family. He was 92 years old. In New Mexico, Indigenous women are speaking out to block a key appointment in the state's tribal relations. James R. Mountain has been nominated by the state's governor to lead its Indian Affairs Department. That idea is facing heavy resistance due to a rape charge against Mountain 15 years ago. The prosecution ultimately dropped the charge due to insufficient evidence, and the court records were previously sealed. This story, broken by New Mexico In Depth, says Mountain would chair the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's and Relatives Task Force as head of the department. Members of the state's organization are outraged at the suggestion, with 2 members even considering resigning if Mountain Mountain's nomination is confirmed. Officials on behalf of the governor's office say they do not intend to withdraw Mountain's nomination for the position. His appointment would need to be confirmed by the state Senate before their session ends on March 18th. Staying in New Mexico, a tribal basketball program is connecting hundreds of children to their community. Over 200 Zuni students are expected to participate in this year's basketball league hosted by the Zuni Youth Enrichment Project. The league connects youth to community coaches and celebrates Zuni culture. Participants ages 7 through 12 will practice twice a week and learn about basketball nutrition and the Zuni language and kinship system. The efforts were made possible this year by a number of organizations, including the New Mexico Department of Health, the San Manuel Band of Mission Indians, and the Zuni Public School District. The season for these young ballers will officially run from March 20th to May 20th. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Drums and protest songs echoed across the South Dakota prairie on Monday as hundreds of people marched to Wounded Knee. That was to honor the activists who revived the Indigenous fight against injustice 50 years ago by occupying the sacred site. ICT's Shirley, Sneve, and Stewart Huntington were there.
The song of the American Indian movement mingled with eruptions of celebratory gunfire at the very place where hundreds of Lakota people were slaughtered by U.S. soldiers in 1890, and where AIM activists, including the late Carter Camp, took a stand in 1973.
Today we're still here. Today we're strong because of our relatives who fought here in 73. Today we're proud to be who we are as Native people, Indigenous people of this land. I want to say won't be like
Bill Means, brother of the late AIM leader Russell Means, who helped lead the occupation, reminded the crowd not to forget the 19th century massacre.
There's almost 300 men, women, and children in that grave behind us. Every time we go by here, we're reminded about the United States government, what they did to our people. And so that's the reason why we resist.
Then Means switched to talk about 1973 and the present.
Remember, we came here for the 1868 Fort Laramie Treaty. We didn't just come here to raise hell. We had to make a statement to tell the world that Indians are still alive. This is still our land, and the Black Hills are not for sale.
The 1973 occupation began as a protest against the heavy-handed tribal government of Dick Wilson, but evolved into a 71-day standoff against federal law enforcement and demands for treaty rights. In the end, at least 3 people were killed. Veterans of the occupation gathered to swap stories.
I felt like the spirit, the energy brought us here, me, for sure. And I was looking for something, to validate ourselves, our own self-searching. And in a time when it wasn't good to be Indian, in my time, or my youth. And so, for better or worse, I realized that you have to be who you are, and you should be who you are.
The federal marshals had all the high grounds, and we had bunkers and support teams down here in the middle, and the trading post was over here, and our security headquarters. And so it's all gone now. You know what strikes me about it is as soon as it ended, the federal people came in and they bulldozed all the main structures and buildings here. And I think they were trying to erase this out of history, that it would go away and people would forget about the massacre that happened originally and the rebellion that happened here again, because people haven't forgotten. And so coming back here, I think, is a way of rebuilding that struggle and the structures and the fight that took place here to keep the memory alive and to care for future generations. And so this is a real strong statement, I think, today, everybody being here for the 50th anniversary, the ones of us that are still around.
Ken Tiger served in Vietnam before joining the 73 occupation.
Looking back on it, there was a lot of similarities. There was a lot of farmers in Vietnam who didn't want anything to do with the war. They just wanted to take care of their property, their families, their communities. And basically, that's what the people here were trying to do too. But there's fractions within the government who were trying to take what they had, what little they had to begin with. They were trying to take it away from them, and they were trying to tell them how to live, what to do, and things like that. And that's not the way it should be.
He brought a picture of himself from '73 on his phone and pointed to the spot where, back then, he dug community toilets. Willard Carlson remembers the era as a tough time for natives.
There was a lot of things that was happening in Indian country everywhere, like heavy-handed police, white bartender killed a friend of mine, highway patrols took an Indian man and executed him on Highway 101, Arcata, California.
And he remembers getting ready on the West Coast to join the occupation.
And I went off recruiting warriors and weapons, and my mother, she had about 8 rifles she gave me from her family, or her man at that time, just as long as they were operational. So we drove over here, and it was a very dangerous time, very bad.
Looking ahead, things are perhaps better, but the work is not done.
It is still sad that we unfortunately face some of the same struggles today, and so that's what keeps many of us as helpers and continuing to show up and help where we can for future generations, and of course honoring those that have gone before us.
The fight is not over. The fight continues to this day, and I think it'll continue for the rest of our lives. Generation through generation. I mean, we're still here today. 50 years later, we're still here today. A lot of our people, we continue to do our daily battles with, the government, with, the everyday life, the struggles, the different things that basically the system is basically set up for us to fail as Indigenous people. And we continue to fight that to this day and prove them wrong. And we'll continue to prove them wrong, every day.
In Wounded Knee, South Dakota with Shirley Sneve, Stewart, Huntington, ICT News.
The Fire Generation Collaborative is a diverse group of emerging leaders who are aiming to transform the world through fire. They are working to influence international policy and governance projects, community-focused research, and media campaigns. Just some of the group's initiatives include growing fire capacity and awareness among younger generations through cultural fires, prescribed burning, and community resilience. The organization's executive director, Ryan Reed, is here to tell us more. Hi there, Ryan.
How you doing? Nice to meet you, and it's great to be here.
So tell us about how the Fire Generation Collaborative started.
Yeah, essentially just one opportunity that put us in a position to speak to Randy Moore, the Chief of the Forest Service, someone who's in a position of power, someone's a position of being a person of color, and just having a conversation about in what ways to have younger generations involved in the process and the conversations of not only fire policy, but forest management.
Let's actually talk more about that, because your group was invited to Washington, D.C. to meet with some pretty top lawmakers there. What was that experience like?
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in a very small rural town, and so the opportunity to go speak to some high-level political leaders was something that I didn't ever think was in the cards. It was something that I could never fully understand as an opportunity, but it happened. And so it was a reality that was a little bit surreal, but also knowing that everything that has been passed down for me from generation to generation was, it's an opportunity to reconcile, to be resilient. And I think it was just the overwhelming feeling to sit there and say that Indigenous leadership, as well Indigenous management and stewardship, is a priority in our ecosystems today. And it's pretty evident with these large catastrophic wildfires is that Indigenous management is the solution to many issues right now.
Who are some of the people in your collaborative, and what are some of your current goals and projects?
Yeah, so one of the individuals who was able to get the meeting with Randy Moore was Kyle Trefney, University of Oregon student. Another graduate student, Alyssa Warsham from Western Colorado University, and Bradley Massey from Alabama A&M. And so it's a pretty national group, very ambitious and hungry folks. But one of our current goals right now is to build relationships with large agencies like the Forest Service, BLM, the Office of Wildland and Fire, and so different groups like that, just to, in what ways can we incorporate younger generations? And we feel like those groups, as well as increasingly more groups, are going to be able to have the opportunity to be a part of those conversations. We're excited to work with other Indigenous groups and the people who are actually putting fire on the landscape and creating a meaningful environment for Indigenous practitioners to be, in the conversation again.
For some people listening to this interview, it might be the first time that they're actually hearing about fire culture. Can you tell us what exactly that means to you and what it looks like in your own community?
Yeah, fire culture is one of the things that is on the periphery. But as wildfires are getting increasingly more intense, there's a need for firefighters to be, having to go through the process in order to stop the destruction, as well as the catastrophe within the ecosystems. And so for Indigenous culture, we're proactive. We think and prepare for the next generations. And it's very apparent with the climate crisis right now that fire suppression, which is one of the things that is prominent in the fire culture, is being prioritized rather than looking ahead. And so Indigenous leadership proves to look not only for stopping any major issues when it comes to fire, destruction, threatening of our communities, but also looking in what ways to take care of the landscape as well as our non-human relatives. And so that's one of the things that we prioritize. One of our values is to understand what the ecosystem needs, as well as our communities who are very threatened and in a position of, that aren't really heard.
As the executive director of this group, how do you see others getting involved in this type of work?
There's so many different ways, and one of them is just understanding the issue, right? Like you said, that there's not very many people who are aware of that this is an issue, but I think just understanding what fire is, what it can do, both bad and good, is a great first step for folks. There's also policy. There's always bills going through the different avenues of the Senate or as well as the House that are very detrimental or position to elevate Indigenous leadership, but also around the workforce development that is immensely needed right now when it comes to keeping our community safe.
Well, Ryan Reed, the Executive Director of the Fire Generation Collaborative, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. You're welcome.
Lawmakers in various states are in session right now, as well as lawmakers in the U.S. Congress. That, of course, means there are lots of bills to watch affecting Native communities. ICT regular contributor John Tasuda is back. He's a principal at Navigators Global. Hi again, John.
Hello, good to see you again.
Oh, thank you so much. Let's start off in Montana, where there's a bill that could provide protections for the Indian Child Welfare Act on a state level. What have you heard about that?
Well, it seems to be what I would call a positive development over the last few years as challenges to the Indian Child Welfare Act have mounted, that states, particularly those with large Native populations, understand the importance of the policies behind ICWA, and so they're passing their own state laws, that provide the same or similar protections. And often, these laws, which I believe the one in Montana is intended to do, is also to work in concert with the federal law to achieve the policy goals, which everybody supports.
And why is it important to protect these kinds of ICWA laws? Because we know that, of course, the federal law is currently under examination by the U.S. Supreme Court.
Well, the importance of these laws really has to do with our children. And, we have this history of children being forced to boarding schools and being forcibly removed from families. So, the basic policy of ICWA was to reverse that trend, which really caused generational damage to Native communities. And it's not really something that's peculiar to Native folks. The policies and the people that developed ICWA itself and the sort of underlying, if you want to call it family law principles, the interests of the child, et cetera, these are considered best practices by all advocates for children in these situations across the country. And so ICWA is kind of unique in that regard that it's a federal law, but it sets a really high standard as far as the positive policies for families and children. So, it's an important standard in general for these situations for foster kids. For our communities, as we have seen generational damage done by removal from their communities, it's an opportunity to undo that damage and prevent it in the future. I think, again, looking outside of just the Native community, people agree that it's important for young children, especially when they're removed at very early ages, to either be with family or with people who are from the community that they come from. As they get older, they start to wonder, they feel removed from the immediate family that adopted them or that they've been placed with. They often feel displaced. So, having an opportunity to connect with a community, their family, their background is very important to these children, regardless of what the background is. And as we know with Native children, it really is very important to them and to their family to reconnect them and make the family whole.
So I guess if I'm understanding that correctly, John, this ICWA bill in Montana would be really important for protecting Native children.
It would be really important. So I believe there are 10 states now that have passed somewhat similar laws, again, to work in concert with ICWA or to have their own standards in place. And most of those, again, are states that have large Native populations. So it may be that we see sort of a network of state laws that provide these protections over time. That, in some regards, is helpful to the states as well, so that they can pursue their own goals in concert with their Native citizens of their state, but not be worried about having to, have federal grants removed, et cetera. So it does provide some benefits from the state side as well in their interaction with the federal government.
I want to switch gears here because the U.S. Supreme Court heard oral arguments on Tuesday about student loan debt. What did you take away from those arguments?
Interesting takeaway. I feel like you can never really tell where the court's going to go from the questions they ask. Oftentimes, I think justices probe areas that they may not think they're going to go down, but just want to make sure that their interest or that their views on those are going to be supported as they dig further into it. I really look at it from an economic side, frankly. I have been troubled for a long time at this inflation in the cost of higher education in particular. And it really, to my mind, devalues the opportunities that tribes and the federal government provide to Native students. There are set budgets that tribes have oftentimes, and the federal government has a set budget to provide things like scholarships, et cetera. And this ever increasing, faster than the rate of inflation, this increasing cost to attend higher education really devalues what the tribes and the federal government are trying to provide to the next generation of Indian leaders.
That's really interesting. I was actually going to ask you what you've heard from Native people about their general concerns or thoughts about, the student debt conversation.
I haven't heard a lot. I think it's not been on the radar. I suspect at this point, it's really, and depending how the case comes out, will probably be something that tribal communities are going to start really focusing on. Again, this is an impact down the road, and for folks who come from families that don't have a high income, they often think that it doesn't really matter because they're going to get scholarships, et cetera. But I think if you think across the board, the higher cost just lowers the number of scholarships that tribes and the federal government can offer to the next generation of Native students. So I think and I hope that they will become more focused on this issue in the near future.
Well, John Tsuda, thank you so much.
Thank you. Always enjoy it.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.